My dice still roll in sixes, and yours still turn up ones. And I've taken my good fortune, and I've run, and I've run. You know, recently I've been having this existential crisis. It's a philosophical point in a way, I suppose. It's about the endeavouring forward motion of humanity and the quest for self and for species betterment, because you see, it's about the bare bones of something. And when you consider this from, I don't know, an esoteric standpoint, it's actually quite bizarre. I mean, we're here at Silverstone, right? And we are here overall. I don't mean the big question of why do we exist. I mean, what's the point of actually being here today at Silverstone? Is there an actual point to this pursuit? I mean, think about it, right? Across this great land of ours, there are many, many ribbons of tarmac, racing circuits. Part of the deal today, this weekend, is about trying to travel one of those same pieces of asphalt a few hundredths or thousandths of a second quicker than what had been happening a few moments before, to be followed later in the day by chasing or being chased by one another to kind of like traverse this piece of land repeatedly, but overall in less time than other people. I mean, what does it actually mean? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Now, that's given to Einstein. I don't know over here he said first, but I heard it in the movie 28 Days. It's about rehab, and it applies here. It's what's happening on track behind us. A truth, however, last weekend at Knockhill, Rob Huff versus Tom Ingram for the win in British touring cars. Those moments, that's why we're here. Two of the very best front-wheel drive touring car races on the planet going toe to toe. If that doesn't make your nipples tingle, then why the fuck are you watching this video? You know, because it's a day where every microliter of human blood in your body is bouncing. One driver versus another. That's where art trumps science. Okay, enough of my rambling bollocks. State of touring cars. Do I deliver this with charm, gunboat diplomacy, or just in my usual fashion? Let's fucking see. 4 subjects today. Future rules of the Btcc. Is TCR globally working? The new TC lights, touring cars. Why is so many pairs of knickers in a twist over that? And TOCA Juniors, is it the right direction for tin tops in terms of junior racing? Alright then, well, TC lights, right? I've got bullet points for these just to go through. You know, there's a number of things that people have been going about with the TC lights thing. It's too expensive, 70 grand. It's not cheap enough. I mean, these cars are designed for low-level touring car racing and for rallying. They're kind of like the old Group N days where you can theoretically take a car and run it in one championship on the track like this here at Silverstone and then take it rallying. But it's not just about putting knobbly tyres and mud flaps on. I'm having a look here, you know what I mean? It's not about just sticking the co-driver seat and all that kind of thing. And off you go racing. But let's be honest, if you are racing a TC light car as a race car, you are not going to buy a second-hand one that's a rally car, is it? Oh yeah, it's just not going to happen. There's been a lot of people saying, how does it fit into the grand scheme of things over here? I don't think, and I can't see any reason for there to be a TC Light Championship in the UK. It just doesn't fit in. 70 grand, that's your starting point, you know. I mean, over here today, what we've just had finished is we've got TCR UK on the national circuit, on the international circuit. We've got 750 Motor Club, the Club Enduro and whatnot, which is running some TCR cars. I think that's the kind of place you're more likely to see a TC Light car in multi-class racing, if you're going to see them over here. There's absolutely no reason to fit it into the British tin top ladder as things stand. And it's customer racing, so you know, for those people who said should it be on the TOCA package, well, it's only going to get onto a TOCA package if there's a lot of manufacturer backing. And as I say, it's customer racing. People aren't in TC Lights to sell cars, so you're not going to see it on TOCA. That's, I think, obviously the way things have moved in terms of for next year bringing TOCA Juniors on top of everything that's going on. There's no place to fit it. Where will it work? Because TCR isn't hitting everything everywhere. I know people will see at TCR UK there's been some small grids, but also, you know, we're in a country where there's a lot of racing, so you can kind of understand that. But when you look at the French Touring Car Championship, TCR is one of the higher classes. In their championship, you've got everything from Ginetta G40s, you know, almost anything goes. Homebrew specials. So why is there not 26 TCR cars over there? You're more likely to see TC Lights in a championship like that. And I think when you look at places like some Asian countries and some European countries, if they want their own decent level single set of regulation touring car championship, TC Lights would be great, because the cars are a lot cheaper than TCR and they're a lot cheaper to run. I mean, fundamentally, it's not cars for kids either, which will bring us on to the next thing, which is the TOCA Juniors. Hooligans. Don't realise I'm trying to make a video here. TOCA Juniors have just recently been announced. And one thing that keeps coming up is cost. Startup costs. Well, it's going to be about 90k for a car, but when you look at it this way, if you're buying a TCR car, building a Btcc car, buying a TOCA Junior, yes, there is an upfront cost, but your business plan will split the actual build cost across a couple of years. So it's not like it's all going to be in one go. You know, there's a lot of people, like I say, it's saying it costs too much. It's like, no, it'll be just like any other form of racing. Teams will buy the cars and they'll split the cost of the initial purchase across a few years. It's kind of like a Btcc chassis as well. So it's got a front clip, back clip. That's going to cost a little bit less than having to re-shell every other week like you do with the Fiesta Junior. That's been unfair to Fiesta Juniors, if I'm honest, yes. If you're a team, you've got to add in the costs of employing your team. Transport, repairs, a little bit of profit. That's allowed, isn't it? A little bit of profit. This is not a charity. People are like pissing ants over it. It's not a charity. So it does actually make commercial sense. Yeah, with that box look to it, the front end, you've probably seen all the Peugeot comments about. I think it looks more like a Postman pad van. But the thing about it is, it's a bespoke racing car for young drivers, aged 14 to 17. The Fiesta is a converted road car. The Saxo and the Junior Saloons is a converted road car. That's one of the reasons why it's cost so much, because you're talking about kids' safety here. It's just like Formula 4. You can't take any risks. Is there any relevance to tin top racing from it with them being rear wheel drive? I can't answer that at the minute. The proof of the pudding will be in the eating. That's an absolutely terrible cliche, but it's one that will have to stand up. With it being rear wheel drive though, it is certainly the type of car that you want to put kids into when they're coming out of karting, isn't it? And I think considering the price that some high-level karters are paying, it'll cost them less to run a year in TOCA Juniors at €14 before going in Formula 4, like we've seen with Ginetta Juniors before. As anybody connected to touring car will always tell you again and again, we birthed Lando Norris, not his mum, TOCA. It's one of the few things we've got when it comes to that kind of thing. But yeah, I think there's still a lot to come out, but there's a lot of people are getting pretty panicky about it for absolutely no reason. The finances around it are no different than the finances for the Porsche Cup cars or any of the other TOCA supports. It's no different than any other like British GT, TCR teams that own the cars, or championships where people own cars and run them on arrive and drive at club level. It's not a thing to worry about, and I fully expect to be 26 cars on the grid. Okay, I've got my notes. Often I do things from memory, sometimes I do things just on the moment, but there's a lot of important points that have been brought up by fans when I've spoken to them, by people within the sports. And as a journalist, it's my job to get out there and find out what's going on and report it back. It's not always my job to share my opinion, and that's what I'm doing with this video. I'm sharing a bit of opinion. So some of the things I've noted about what we're here for today to cover TCR UK at Silverstone, which is the midpoint of the season. You've got to give it to TCR, and that me notices. Gen 1 Cup outside UK, bop you want. Essentially that's because the Gen 1 Cup's something that's working here now and is being adopted worldwide and will be going forward, because BOP, for those of you who don't know what BOP is, that's balanced performance. TCR's equalised through balanced performance. If you consider Gen 1 cars, and there's some racing and endurance race over here right now, they are road cars that have been built into race cars essentially. I think apart from the Hyundais, and I will continue to call them Hyundai, I don't give a shit what you say, I'll continue to call it Hyundai. They were built by Hyundai Motorsport in Germany specifically, but a lot of the other companies just pulled production cars off the production lines and built a TCR car out of the shell. The Gen 2 cars are essentially bespoke built race cars designed from the ground up in the shell. And the handle of them simply better. Whenever I talk to any driver who's driven both, and say the worlds apart from maybe the i30, but Gen 1, Gen 2, worlds apart. If you were to balance the performance across the grid so that the Gen 1 cars were competitive, why would you buy a Gen 2 car? Here today, Gen 1 cars on a less than a minute lap are a second to 2 seconds slower. If you equalise them, it's not going to work. You're just going to have a field of Gen 1 cars, because if you can buy one for 60 grand, why buy a Gen 2 car? It's just, if you want to keep the format going, you've got to keep bringing cars. And cars have and are coming. There's the new Cooper, obviously, which is popping up a little bit in Europe and around the world. There's the new Peugeot that's popping up in Australia soon. And that's where it becomes interesting, because some of the TCR championships around the world have just kind of like disappeared up their own arses. Germany, for example. And again, going back to the likes of TCR Asia, they're not exactly strong because they're not in places that are culturally racing areas. I think that does have an effect on it. One of the things that comes to mind with the TCR is, I know people use them in different types of competition, endurance, sprint racing, TCR racing, the Michelin Pilot Cup and whatnot, but I think the idea with TCR was to create a new super touring in terms of having a car that you can take to different parts of the world and race in different parts of the world. And to be frank, it hasn't worked. I don't know why. I mean, people will argue it's your world TCR. There's 3 championships of TCRs, full grids in Italy, but it hasn't taken off in a lot of places. I'm not quite sure why it hasn't. I don't know whether that's not having a kind of coordinated promotion related to everything, and it comes down to things like the TCR World Tour, formerly World TCR, hopping off to places like Uruguay, Morocco. I think to make TCR work, they need to be racing in places where TCR cars are really racing in quantities that can be promoted, including the UK. They need to be going to tracks where people take notice. Back to Bathurst, back to the Nürburgring to support the 24 hours, stuff like that. TCR around the rest of the world needs World TCR to support them through doing some of them kind of things. It's not broken, far from it, and the cars are great, but it is interesting to see how things are going to go in the next couple of years, because as I've written and spoken about before, we've obviously got the electric series coming in Sweden, and we've got SUV racing in Brazil that are replacing stock cars there. So that's your tin tops and 2 markets that are having a look at what people are actually buying. So yeah, there does need to be a look at TCR worldwide to see how the format's going to continue to work. Right, here we are at the end of the day. So the Btcc in 2027, the regulation changes don't just mean technical changes. Cost cutting ideas is one of the interesting things, and things that people have said to us from within sport. Reduce personnel, which means you're cutting costs on accommodation, on food, travel, uniform costs, plus wages for those that are paid, because not everybody gets paid. The price for spec components could be brought down. It's not price fixing, it's not monopoly, but they are set price, and some can still be sold for less and still be profitable. Less tyres, harder tyres used for more races. Off the shelf cost for 4 tyres. Oh, Goodyear Btcc tyres are what, 300 quid plus per tyre. On a race day, that's over £1,000. I was told across the season £39,000 for tyres, just race day tyres. Add in practice and testing, and it's a big bill. Some of the crazy things that people in the championship have said: cut a practice session, or even just run 1 single hour one, or cut races down to 2 again like in the old days. Yeah, the reason given was sound, and it included making them a bit longer with harder tyres. Now that hybrid and tyres is having an effect, those races could be more exciting. Another suggestion I was given: Saturday practice, then qualifying, then a 20-minute race. Sunday 2 races. Their offering was this: 1 race at lunchtime, 1 at tea time, so it doesn't clash when F1's on. So casual fans have got more chance of watching 2 races instead of missing the middle one. I don't know about that myself. I mean, okay, casual fans don't then have to drop in 3 times on race day. No offence to support categories, but DTM used to wait until the F1 calendar was released to finalise theirs to avoid a clash, and it used to work in Germany. I don't think they still do it. I mean, DTM just exists. The hybrid thing that keeps coming up, the cost. Right, if it's what, 25-30 grand a season, if you're paying £400,000 to £700,000 a season, depending who you believe, if hybrid costs are really a problem when they're only that price, then you're in the wrong series, even if you're able to bring prices down. Reduce race meetings to 9. If you do that, though, I think it's a signal that it's not viable, and sponsors would then be wary. Plus, it's one less live broadcast to sell, even if TV works anymore. I mean, personally, I think the current Sunday format is perfect. Saturday, for me, not so much, but that only becomes relevant when it's looked at on a cost basis, which comes to fans in those situations. Would you pay the same price for a Sunday ticket with 1 less race, even if the cars are on track for the same amount of time? I mean, at the end of the day, it's your eyeballs that allow these championships to happen. I mean, there is no panic, it's just sensible things. So my summary of things really is like this: don't launch TC like championships in established racing markets. It won't draw enough interest. It'll shoot itself in the foot. They're offering nothing new or different. Btcc, keep entertainment for fans at the forefront, whatever changes are made. TCR as a format, don't change it, but overall needs some extra work at the top. TOCA Juniors, it's going to work.